Matt, we've got another exciting return guest. And
Yes.
I think this is going to be the first and maybe the only time that our guest did some serious damage to themselves due to the song that we're talking about.
Ooh.
Kelly, we hinted at this when you were with us on the last album, but what is the reason that I may have said you need to be on our lasagna episode?
Oh, man. Yeah, thank you for making me relive my trauma. I was mentioning it to my husband last night. I was like, here's why they chose me for this song, if you don't remember. And he was like, oh, how kind of them. But yeah, my personal connection to the song Lasagna is it was the song I was listening to on my CD player when I was 13, home alone, dancing voraciously throughout my house, and twisted my ankle so badly that it's never healed.
Oh, no.
So initially we thought it was just a sprain, which was also diagnosed by my, now that I look back on it, not very good next door neighbor pediatrician. She was like, walk it off, it's fine. But when I sprained it again, like 3 months later, I finally got like a series of x-rays and stuff. And I gave myself what's called an avulsion fracture, which means that the ligament actually tore off a little piece of bone with it when you sprained it. And because they didn't know that, it healed wrong. So it just means that I sprain it over and over and over again.
That's magical.
That's so funny.
I assume Al knows this story at this point.
Yeah, he's read my book, so he's had to digest and deal with this information, whether he's retained it or not.
I mean, that's just something that Al has to live with now, you know?
Yeah, he caused me
He has to live with the
harm.
knowledge of what he did to you.
Yeah.
If you wonder why he never plays lasagna when he comes to Philly, it's because he knows that Kelly might be there and he doesn't.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I won't control myself. I will start dancing, and he'll be like, no,
I think
not
to
again.
me, the reason why I wanted you to be on the show about this, beyond that, I mean, I remember reading that in the book and being like, oh, you have to do lasagna then. But I guess to me, it's like, it's a fun song, but like of all the songs to injure yourself dancing in the Al catalog, it's not the first one that would come to mind. But
I don't know, but it feels oddly appropriate, though, too, because it's so, like, goofy and just, like, it does make you want to sort of dance around the room in that sort of, I don't know, I believe it. I get it.
Yeah, I tried to capture myself in the way that I remembered dancing around my house, which is like total full body flailing.
Yeah.
Because when you're home alone and you're that young and you're carrying your no skip CD player, you're like, I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to love those no skip CD players.
But I feel like I definitely had some skips happen on my
skips
notes.
all
It was the
time.
worst thing ever because it made you like check out my no skip player and you just shake it while
like,
playing
wiggling
it.
it, yeah.
And it like even if it didn't skip, then at the end you'd open it up and be like, why does my CD look like shit? It's because you're still damaging it while you. It's like it was not
you're
a
like,
good
how
marketing
could
scheme.
I scratch a CD?
I also, this was like, I'm sure every child of the 90s did this, but that move that to me was so entertaining to like hit the button to eject, like if you had like the open top while it's still playing for a couple seconds and it's like still spinning and slowing down. It's like that probably did so much damage to those CDs versus the proper like hit stop and then open it.
Yeah,
Totally.
what hubris we had.
Well, that
What
was
you're making me think about now too is like if I was listening to that whole album, Lasagna's like halfway through.
Yeah.
So I'm like charged up from the first half of this album and then started just losing my mind to the point that I slipped on carpet so bad and thinking about it for 20 years.
Oh, so you were on a playthrough of the full record and Lasagna was just where the
Yeah, it
incident
must have
happened.
been.
It wasn't one of those like you were just obsessed and you were just looping Lasagna. You were
Yeah,
in a
like,
lasagna loop.
All of these things are possible. I did have that lock repeat button on that.
Yeah,
CD.
I remember that feature too.
this.
Just don't stop playing this song for me.
So we can't play our hand just yet. We'll save this for good old days. But I am curious, in the grand scheme of Al releases, would you rank Even Worse as one of the top ones for you?
That is an interesting question. I do think this album has some real strong entries and some real like dark horse songs that I personally love a lot. So yeah, I think this ends up being in maybe the upper tier of all the albums.
So far covering this one, I feel like at this point in the record and knowing what we have coming up, it's not one that I think of in this lens, but there really isn't like, I don't think that there's really any serious bad songs on it. Like, I think it's all killer. Like, there's no filler on it at all.
Yeah, I'm looking at the track listing right now, and
it's been pretty solid so far in our rundown here.
Yeah, like even something like "Dare to Be Stupid" that we loved. Like, there are like one or two songs where I'm like, this is maybe not like I'm like, there's not a song on here that I'd be like, oh, well, the album would be better if this song wasn't there. Like, I'm like, no, this is a pretty across the board.
Yeah.
Like, they're all good.
I agree.
Fun fact about this song is that it's one of the only parodies where Al gets sole writing credits.
Yeah, I don't think I really processed that until I was reading about it. And I was like, oh yeah, this is just a folk song.
So it's funny, yeah. I had to check because I read online that, again, this is a public domain folk song, so he did not have to ask permission. But if you look on Wikipedia in most places, it credits Al and Richie Valens as the writers on this track. So I busted out my copy of Even Worse on vinyl, which I'm holding up right now. And I checked the credits, and it does specifically say that this is just Al. Yeah. So he did not have to give anybody credit. That might be, it's definitely the first that we've seen so far. It might be the only time in the whole career so far.
I really think it is. Yeah. Because I think it's in the style of the way that Richie Valens popularized the song, but that doesn't.
I think it's Los Lobos.
Los Lobos was closer
Yeah.
because that was the one that came out in the 80s around the La Bamba movie, which is probably why this was a culturally relevant song for him to do at this point in time. I have. Okay, so we're going to get into all of this, but I have a lot of like mildly traumatic memory around the song La Bamba. And the first one, I don't know why.
I'm so glad we all have trauma.
Here we go.
Today.
Yeah. I also have sprained my ankle many times, so I really identify with you on that. It's a horrible, horrible thing.
It really is.
But when I was a kid, this is like, you know, you have these sort of isolated early memories from your childhood of like, there's no context around it. It's just a moment in time that you remember. And I have a memory of my cousin, one of my cousins, who had just been given an acoustic guitar. And he was so excited about it, and he could play the chords of La Bamba because it's pretty straightforward, and it was popular at that time. And he's playing La Bamba, and out of nowhere, he decides to like rock out a bit and pulls the neck of the guitar back and clocked me right in the face.
Oh.
And I just cried and cried and cried, and I was very, very upset. So that's traumatic memory number one about La Bamba. Traumatic memory number two about La Bamba is, and this is a lot less traumatic, but it's still a story worth telling. I've mentioned before how I used to work at a record store, and at the record shop, sometimes if a title came in that was kind of rare or desirable or collectible in some way, but it was a little bit scratched or scuffed up, we would play test it to make sure it played through before we sold it, because we tried to guarantee that things were, worked. And we found there was an old vinyl compilation that came through that for some reason was really valuable. And all it was like 15 different versions of La Bamba. And the owner of the shop was like, you need to check this because this is actually valuable and we got to make sure that it works. And I just stood there listening to La Bamba over and over and over
like
again.
50
and I was like,
straight.
I'm losing my mind. Like, this is driving me absolutely crazy.
And it's like you have to intently listen. It's not like
I
you
have
can
to really
passively
focus because if it's bad, we can't sell it. And the most insulting part is that the record skipped on the last La Bamba. So I listened to the whole thing, and then it skipped at the end, and then we couldn't sell it. It was a total waste of my time.
Oh my God. So this song at its core only causes physical and emotional
I
harm.
guess so. I don't know if we've tapped into something here. This is like, we've established that it's an old public domain folk song, so maybe there's some real bad juju attached to this track. I don't know. Richie Valens did die in a plane crash. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Woo.
Los Lobos' career never recovered.
Los Lobos. Maybe we shouldn't be talking about this right now.
Yeah, we are flirting.
If something bad happens to the three of us after the release of this episode, you guys are going to know why.
So
maybe we're bulletproof because we've already been harmed.
That's true. I feel like
it's
already...
like a one-strike deal.
Yes, I'm already wearing the scar of La Bamba.
Yeah, we're afflicted.
So I want to bring up real quick that there's also, as we're talking about weird trauma, the usage.
Yes.
No. It's not about me, actually. The usage. Very rarely do we find like usage in other media for Weird Al songs.
Right.
There's two for Lasagna. One of them, all right, fine. It's apparently playing on the radio in the 2010 Yogi Bear movie.
Yes.
That's fine. This sentence baffled me. In the second season of the NBC drama This Is Us, entitled The Car, the Pearson family sings the song to calm Rebecca, Mandy Moore's character's nerves as they cross a bridge on their way to a Weird Al Yankovic concert.
So,
Do any of us have firsthand knowledge of this?
I've never watched the show in my life.
Here's what I have to say, because I'm so glad you brought it up. Mere seconds before we started recording this episode, I fell deep down this rabbit hole about This Is Us. Because I have not discussed on the show before, my ultimate teenage boy crush was Mandy Moore.
Yeah.
Loved Mandy Moore.
Fair.
I was all
How
in.
the Deal's his most
I would say I
watched
still
movie.
am all in on Mandy Moore. I wish that I wanted her to do more music stuff. I hope that she does. I really liked her records, and then she went into acting. Totally fine. I'm Team Mandy all the way. But the first thing that I read about this was on, I think it was Nathan Rabin's website, who we have not really shouted out that much, but he deserves some credit because for people who don't know, Nathan Rabin did The Big Squeeze, it was called, right? He basically did a blog thing where he analyzed every Al song in a similar way to what we are doing, but in blog format. He did that years ago, deserves much credit. I have referenced his site before in preparation for these episodes. But in that, he mentioned that he heard that in This Is Us, Mandy Moore sings Lasagna. And when I read the sentence, Mandy Moore sings Lasagna, I was like, stop everything. I need to find this. Guys, I looked it up. I was like, I have to find the episode. I found what the episode was. Yes. I signed up for a Hulu trial so that I could watch this. And I watched it. And as you just correctly said, Matt, Mandy does not sing Lasagna. Mandy's family sing Lasagna to her to calm her down as she is stressed out about being on a bridge. She doesn't like driving over bridges, and there's construction on the bridge, and she is upset that she's stuck on the bridge. And the family tries to calm her down by singing Lasagna. Everyone but Mandy Moore is singing Lasagna, and I felt a little bit shortchanged.
That's honestly devastating, and I think you now have earned your third.
Yeah, that's your third.
That
trauma.
counts as a third lasagna
trauma.
related trauma, right? And in my. And so it really derailed the prep I was doing for this episode. I just went completely, it was like 45 minutes of me trying to find this. And then I even like scanned through the rest of the episode. I'm like, maybe at the end she'll sing it. But no, she does not. She does not sing Lasagna. I know. And I think it's a pretty big episode, like spoilers for This Is Us, but I think someone dies in that episode. I think it's like a real like pivotal moment, and it like winds up with like a funeral sequence.
So this was my question about this fact. My impression of This Is Us, a show I've never seen.
Yeah,
but
I had not seen it before this either.
It always seems like it's extremely serious, very dramatic, very like emotionally wrought. Are there frequently moments like played for laughs? And was this played for laughs?
I don't know.
This, like, a
in that moment, it definitely was, because the setup is they show a kid. It's actually very cool. One of the kids is in the backseat wearing a Weird Al Lasagna t-shirt.
Does that exist?
It's
real?
like a picture of the single artwork, like on a t-shirt.
Okay,
I think that's what it was. And Mandy is like, "Are you guys so excited for your first concert?" And they're like, "Yeah, Weird Al, hooray!" And then the bridge thing happens, and she's like panicking, and she has this moment. She's like, "Oh my God, please tell me I'm not going to die on the way to a Weird Al concert." And the kid at the back is like, "Mom, do you not like Weird Al?" And the father's like, "Of course she likes Weird Al. Just calm down. Everything's fine." So it was a comedic moment in that thing. But no, my understanding is that the show is deadly serious and just everyone dies all the time.
So my experience with This Is Us is I love the Best of Friends podcast hosted by Aaron Mallory Long and Jamie Woodham. And they brought that up where they're like, here's the thing with This Is Us. The thing with This Is Us is that if you're not a person who takes filmmaking or television seriously, it's probably a very sad, emotional show to watch. If you're someone who has like any type of knowledge base of like storytelling, it's like so sad that it just becomes comedic to a certain level, because you're just like, nothing can be this sad every episode for 45 straight minutes.
It's like layers and layers of tragedy. That's what I've heard. I think my parents, or my mom at least, watched it and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, it always looked like it was an episode or a show where every episode is a very special episode.
Yeah, exactly.
91 Donkey Lane is a magical apartment complex that contains immense power but lacks intelligent inhabitants.
What is happening?
I'm getting texts.
Why are we getting a lot of texts?
People found out what we did.
Oh, dividing Mike Myers into an infinite amount of tiny Mike Myers?
Listen to 91 Donkey Lane for free on Spotify or your favorite podcasting app. More at 91donkeylane.com. See you there, you donkeys.
So I did send both of you a link that while this was released as a second single, we know that Fat is the only music video that Even Worse got. But many years later, Al randomly on the Al Yankovic show, or the Weird Al show, decided to just make a 30-second version of a music video.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I went and hunted down the episode because to, lessen my Weird Al cred, I've never sat and watched all of the Weird Al show. But I was like, oh, is there like a segue into this? Is there like something that comes after it? And no, it's just sandwiched between like an Alex Trebek bit and some other random video footage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've decided that since there's only 13 episodes of that show anyway, we might just treat that year that he did that show the same we would treat an album. All right, we'll do one episode at a time, I guess.
Yeah.
Unless we watch the first one and be like, maybe we can double up on this.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It makes me wonder, like, he probably had a concept. This is certainly such an obvious, like, you see it in the video, and for people who haven't seen, you can look this up on YouTube. It's about 40 seconds worth of lasagna turned into a music video. And it's very obvious. It's a family sitting around the table and Al's singing the song and everyone's eating food around him. It's easy to envision this being a full song video, and I wonder if they just didn't have the budget to make it happen.
Yeah, I guess it is unusual that there wasn't more than one video.
I would say there was.
I was trying to think, what was the other, like, was there another big single off of this
I think
album?
this counted as a single, but it was like a radio-only single. Like, it didn't come out. There was, I think Fat was the only video from this record. Am I right
Fat
about
is
that,
the only
Matt?
video from this record. According to Wiki, Lasagna and I Think I'm a Clone Now were released as singles.
Right.
I can't imagine that that's true about I Think I'm a Clone Now. I think that that's some like wishful thinking.
It could have been. I mean, we saw before how it was like there's to call it a single sometimes, especially at this point in music history, meant that they like sent it to radio and they were like, please play this song as a promotional like single for Al. So we had established like they did that for I Want a New Duck all the way back in the day, but that didn't get a video or anything. That was just a, hey, radio stations, if you feel like playing this song. And I don't think that they did.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think if there's not a video that's...
They said pass.
They were like, no, thank
if there's not a video making people talk, especially in the 80s and 90s for Al, I don't think they're just playing a deep cut Al track that they're claiming as a single.
Yeah.
I did learn that Lasagna was released as a 3-inch mini CD in Japan.
What?
I did see that
which is
as
now
well.
something I need to have.
Have you guys ever seen those? They're like super small.
I haven't thought about mini CDs probably in 20
I remember mini CDs.
But that dug something out of the corners of my brain.
There was a local band that only sold their albums
school
as mini CDs.
Yeah, they only work if you have an old school CD player where you can actually put the disc onto the spinning thing in the center. If you have one of those CD drives that like sucks the disc in, do not put in a 3-inch CD.
I tried
Your
once.
Shit will be broken.
I spent a long time shaking it upside down to get it jostled back out.
You're making me wonder if I could put it into my old GameCube.
Ooh.
Like,
a GameCube would probably work. Yeah, that's the type of thing we're looking for. Or your old school non-skipping Walkman.
It is still in a drawer because it's a powerful object that I can't throw out lest it hurt.
Dust that baby off, head to eBay, get yourself this 3-inch.
Yeah, I was looking it up on Discogs last night and I was like, shut up. No, this is not a wise move.
Yeah. Now's not the time to start your 3-inch CD collection, probably.
My one-off 3-inch CD collection.
I'm sure we all read that when Al was writing the song originally, he wanted to try to do it all in Italian and then decided that it would be better to do the bad Italian accent. And
a part of me so wishes he did it in Italian.
Part of me, but I also, I record a lot of podcasts. Sometimes I'm on mic, sometimes I'm not. my uncle's band does a podcast about just like their music, and they're a wedding band, and they share stories of like weird things that happen at weddings. And every once in a while they'll ask me to do like a segment to like fill out the episode. If they think they don't have enough to like talk about, they'll say like, hey, can you come up with like a game? So I actually, to promote the podcast, did a Weird Al game with them where I would tell them the name of a song and they had to guess what the Weird Al song lyric change would have been
That's
for
good.
the chorus.
That's a good game.
And I put, La Bamba in there. And
Yeah.
I've got to tell you, especially because almost every guy in that band is like from a one generation removed Italian family that like immigrated here. They thought stuff like, "Hey, your supper's ready" was like the funniest shit in the world.
I think if we've learned nothing else in recent years about Italian Americans is that they have zero chill about Italian references. Like they love it. You can
They love it.
pander so easily. So yeah, that's not surprising.
It's not surprising. I was just thinking of it through the lens of like, it would be such a deep, especially at this point in history, right? Imagine Al putting out a record in the 80s and it's entirely, there's a joke song that's completely in Italian. I just feel like people would have been losing their minds, be like, I gotta translate this. Like, how can someone
how
help
can I
me?
do this?
We wouldn't have had the internet. It wouldn't have been as easy. Well, internet existed, but it would have been a lot harder for people to figure out what he was saying in this song in Italian. It would have been such a deep sort of troll joke,
would
like
love
the
that.
layers of comedy to it. I don't know, like I get it, it's not a marketable joke. That's a lot harder, but just on paper I love the idea of giving your fans like a challenge like that. That's like hiding a message backwards in your song or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like really making people work for it.
I love that idea.
I would like the idea of like, I just recently re-listened to the Flight of the Conchords first full length, and that kicks off with the song that's like broken French. Like it's just like the random French words that they know. And it's like, I would love that too, where it's just like, here are just common Italian phrases that everybody knows, but the song means absolutely nothing because there's no ability to connect them. Like I think literally
Right.
one
It
of
just sounds so beautiful.
yeah, like
It's
literally one of the
French.
lyrics in the Flight of the Conchords song is just biblioteca discoteca. Like,
Yeah, exactly. It's all the words you learned from an introductory
from Muzzy,
Spanish.
from the
Yeah,
Muzzy
exactly.
commercials
Yeah.
when you were a
Muzzy!
child.
Museo
Oh my
Grande.
Yes, those children are speaking French, but they're not French. They're American.
Did I tell this story on this podcast before about me watching Muzzy and
No.
going to Montreal? I didn't tell this story.
Did you like get the Muzzy tapes?
No, I didn't get the Muzzy tapes, but they ran that commercial all the time. And
I think about that kid. Oh my god, I'm gonna butcher
And
it.
the
but they're
very
like,
first
"Je suis
line-
Alumni."
exactly, the very first line of the Muzzy commercial was this little kid going, "Je suis la jeune fille," and pointing at herself. And then it cuts to the woman going, "Yes, that's French these kids are speaking. And no, they're not French, they're American."
They're American.
And I went when I was 18 years old to Montreal with some friends because I had a friend who was at McGill University up there and we went to visit him. It was the only French phrase I knew. And so I walked around saying it. And for people who don't know, I found out after saying it a bunch in Montreal that what that means is I am the little girl. Je suis la jeune fille. And I just went around saying it because the only French phrase I knew, and someone local had to tell me. He's like, "Do you know what you're saying?" It's like, cool.
Incredible.
I have definitely done everything right on my trip to Montreal.
That's literally like your I Am the Machine Burt Kreischer story,
Yeah, exactly.
but on a way lower level.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That reminds me, I studied abroad in Tokyo when I was in college, and I learned while taking Japanese during that there's like masculine and feminine forms of saying certain phrases and words and certain terms that only like feminine or masculine people say. And my favorite party trick was going around to bars with our Japanese, like the students that we were in school with, and saying things mixed. Like I would say in a very feminine way that I'm super masculine, and they would get dramatically upset with me. They were like, "No, the cognitive dissonance of this
Yeah, I
is
couldn't
so
handle it.
wrong."
I love that.
But I thought it was the funniest thing in the world.
I'm realizing that we have been talking for 25 minutes and we haven't talked much about lasagna.
No, we've covered, but we had a lot to get off our chest, I
We
think,
did,
for this
we did.
song. I personally.
we started on a tangent, so I think this is
Yeah, no, it's totally great.
So for a little bit of lasagna talk before we attempt to do some rankings here. So with the song Lasagna, there's a few things that I wrote down. I love the accordion intro. Like the actual instrumentation throughout
Yes.
this song is awesome.
I wrote down, I think that the middle of this song, the bridge of this song, or solo, whatever you want to call it, is the best example of Al's accordion playing so far in his career.
Yeah.
Like, it is
Yeah,
just
it's
a
really beautiful.
beautifully done part. Like, he is crushing it. And then that's followed by like a flamenco-style guitar part by Jim West.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Like, there's
And then the
this is
gurgling
really well
solo.
done.
Even the gurgling solo is very
Even the-
impressive to me.
Even the
I
gurgling
asked
solo.
in my notes, is this the first time Al gargles in a song?
Actually,
It might.
I think it is. I think you're right.
I think it's the first gargling solo.
You're right. Good call. Good call. We're going to have to keep track
Yeah, no,
on... We're tracking
please keep a
gargling from now
counter.
on. Yeah.
I can think of two.
Yeah, no, there's more for sure coming up. Yeah, we don't want to spoil the gargling for people,
No,
but
no,
it's coming.
please don't.
This is why we
You
bring
should
guests
have
on
your next
episodes like
guest
this.
Exactly.
Yeah, you should have your next guest have to bring their own gargling solo.
There
to
you
the
go.
next-
There you go. I like
I
that
will
idea.
not be doing it.
you're like, I will happily make this a requirement for the future
Yes,
people.
I will cause the chaos, but please do with it what you will. But no, I love that we get to hear Al play accordion in a totally different style.
Yeah,
than
in
we
a
usually
really
get to.
traditional sense. Like, he's just doing this very
Yeah.
traditional part. And again, we haven't talked about it directly, but the obvious, like, the real... I mean, there are funny lines in this song, of course, and there's great lyrics, but the great joke of this song is that he is taking this quintessentially Spanish... or Mexican, I should actually say. I believe it's originally Mexican.
Yeah, I
a
have to
traditionally
look that up.
Mexican song, and just flipping the culture, like doing it exactly the same, but picking a different culture to reference in the same way is more interesting than I would have ever originally given it credit for as a kid. Like, this is a great example of, like, it's got goofy, funny lyrics that you can just grab onto on its own, but the idea of taking this very cultural track and turning it on its head and just giving it a different cultural identity is really, really funny and interesting.
It's like
Yeah,
we've
and for ignorant people like me, I'm then surprised that it's not Italian.
Yeah, exactly.
But we've talked about that before, and we'll talk about it a million times after. Like, there's nothing that's accidental, I think, in Al's
yeah.
songwriting. Like, it is so very overly intentional. And we've talked about literally last week, like, I still keep thinking about the idea of, like, that bridge and I Think I'm a Clone Now being semi-autobiographical.
Wow. Yeah, because you do sometimes hear him mention Weird Al in the third person. 'Cause
Yeah.
He is like,
Yes.
I mean, like, I think like most performers, he is a persona. So yeah, maybe he's thinking about Alfred versus Al.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we definitely talked about in a lot of his media, you really can tell, like when he does visual stuff like The Complete Al or even Weird, he definitely thinks of Weird Al as a different person than himself. Like, he likes to
Absolutely. It's like-
dissociate that
yeah.
way.
Yeah, it's the person that can like completely let go.
Yeah, and then he can even mock himself. He can mock the
Yes.
entity of Weird Al and the celebrity around it and all that stuff in this detached way, which
Yeah.
I love. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
thinking about that the other day because I was thinking that there might be I was thinking about all of the different shows I produce, and there's part of me that was like, I think I would have an easier time getting Weird Al to appear on literally any other show I produce.
Then about
But
himself.
this one, because I think that there is a part of him that's like, I don't like it is a separate person, and he doesn't want to have to show up as Weird Al to talk about Weird Al. He wants
Yeah.
to be Alfred.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
I
was
can
like,
sort of see
man.
that. I remembered hearing there was an interview with Paul McCartney I heard a while ago who said that, like, very early on in his career, he had to do a thing in his brain where he had to split himself and be like Paul McCartney, the guy on stage, versus Paul McCartney, the person who is a dad who is at home and who's just like a guy. He's like, because if you live every day of your life like the person on stage, you how can you possibly function in the world? Like, you're a monster. You can't
Well,
do
that's-
it. You
I'd
need
hate
to
to
be
say
able
it,
to
but
separate
that's-
yourself.
that's where you have the people who die young. You know what I mean? Like,
Kinda true, yeah.
I love Chris Farley to death. Chris Farley tried too much to be Chris Farley on stage 24/7.
You have to be
Like,
able to
it's-
turn
I know,
it
it's
off.
good self-preservation,
Yeah.
honestly.
It's so true.
And to keep the people around you feeling sane, because I don't think they need to be around
Yeah.
most personas.
That's the
all
thing, right? If you're a
time.
dad, you can't like say to your kid, like, do you know who I am? I wrote yesterday. So clean your room.
It's even like when you bring your, like when you're at home and someone you've never worked around, like your spouse or your friends, hears your work voice,
Yeah.
and they're like, who the hell is that?
Yeah, exactly.
Having to do the first like session of working from home during the pandemic while living with my parents and them having to hear Matt on the phone calls with like an important person, like, who is that child? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, like I've had to give important presentations at my living room table. And
Yeah.
my husband will be like, what was that?
So wait a minute, Matt, I have to swing it back just slightly. Are you saying, because you referenced the I think I'm a clone now, like Weird Al talking about himself, do you think is there something autobiographical in Lasagna?
I mean, maybe.
Maybe.
Let's dig into these lyrics real quick.
Let's dig into these lyrics.
He might have a cousin
Actually,
Luigi. We don't know.
We're going to
Yeah,
manja
he might
on
have
these
a
lyrics.
cousin Luigi. I did hear he was on another podcast that is like more food centric, and they were asking tons of rapid fire questions about his connections to of like a million of his food songs. And with Lasagna, the guy was trying to get Al to agree that because he was mentioning all these other dishes, to be like, if you don't like lasagna, it's fine, whatever, eat all this other stuff. He was like, I hate lasagna, so do you also hate lasagna? And Al's like, no, like, lasagna's fine.
I did read a thing that apparently after this song came out, Al actually had to put in his touring rider,
Yes.
no lasagna in dressing rooms, because I think he was just getting lasagna all the time. Because people assumed
apparently
like this
it's
guy
a
must love
cheap-
lasagna.
Yeah, they thought it was a cheap thing to feed a lot of people.
Yeah.
So the whoever his tour manager was at the time was, I think, protecting him
Yeah.
from too many cheap meals.
Oh God.
But that did remind me that like one of my worst food experiences that I can remember was a lasagna.
Ooh.
And it was my mom had gifted me one of those frozen Stouffer's vegetable lasagnas.
Yeah.
And those things weigh like 30 pounds. They're absolutely enormous. So it takes forever for them to cook. And then it was unspeakably bad.
Yeah.
Like it was actual garbage food. And I think me and my husband just choked it down,
Yeah.
shoved it in the fridge for as long as was socially acceptable to keep leftovers, and then just mercifully threw it back into the trash from whence it came.
Yeah.
Like it was rancid.
I feel like lasagna of all of the Italian foods is the easiest one where it can either be phenomenal or hard. Like you can fuck up a lasagna so much easier than like spaghetti.
And it's so common, but it's interesting because it's so common, like a frozen lasagna, even like a single serving is such a common thing to see. And yeah, it's not good because when you reheat it, like the noodles just become mush.
Yeah.
And it's just like
Rubber,
like you're eating a
yeah.
pile of mush. There's no textural it's just, oh God. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Do not recommend frozen lasagna, guys. You got to get the good
do
stuff.
not. Go to a restaurant, make it yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've recently made a bomb lasagna though, so now I have extremely positive connotations with
So
it.
there you go. You got to put the work in though. It's a process, you know.
Yes.
It takes some time.
Yes.
And you
Yeah,
know that the
Stouffer's lasagna was my second lasagna-related trauma. So
oh God.
Yeah, this is Kelly also advertising her catering business, exclusively bomb lasagnas for
Yeah.
your next family function.
Yeah. Bomblasagna.com.
let me give myself more procrastination techniques.
Well, you know that the narrator of this song is not doing frozen lasagna. This is all legit stuff.
No,
this is a real feast.
This is someone spending all day making Sunday gravy and
Exactly.
really putting in the work.
Exactly. Would not tolerate frozen lasagna.
Never.
Samada you.
A sin.
Samada you.
Samada you.
What's the matter, you?
Samada you. I love that line.
This is one of the more easily quotable Al songs.
Oh,
for
it's so
sure.
I know, and it's funny because we're not even really talking about the lyrics, but it is like because it's just like one Italian reference after another. He basically just figured out that all of these Italian dishes end with they all rhyme.
Yes.
Because they all end with an ah sound.
Yeah, it's
so
an ah or an e, depending
Yeah,
on which
exactly.
verse.
Yes.
It's like
But it's kind of culturally perfect, right? Like it's just a bunch of like frenetic, random things as if he's like yelling at the 20 different family members that are in the house that are all doing and paying attention to different things. So he's like, hey, you need some fettuccine. You don't like zucchini? Okay.
And that's why the video, even the short version of the video, works so well because it really is like this song. You can see it in your head, and it's totally there. It's just this person yelling and handing dishes from person to person and
Or more throwing.
yeah,
into
exactly. The
people's
very
faces,
aggressive food handling.
but we
Yeah,
also
big feeding culture.
Yes.
we've also learned from doing this show that there's always like one video that gets all of the budget behind it and then like these very low. So it would be totally on point that if they did make a video, it would be this like, let's just rent a black box theater, make it look like a New York Italian family's
Put a table in the middle.
apartment, pop a table,
Yes.
and just not leave this location.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
All right, are we ready to do our rankings here, Matt?
I think that we are. Capiche, Paisan.
I found like even worse has been the most difficult one for me to rank most of these. I mean, we're coming off of me putting I Think I'm a Clone Now as my number one, which is just the most chaotic ranking I've done in a really long time.
Wait, that's your number one ever?
Parody song,
right now?
yeah, right now. At this point in Al's career, I put that as my number one. It's also my most listened to Al song 3 years running on Spotify somehow. So.
I do remember that being a song that I would just sit around and listen to because I think I had never heard the original for many, many years. And now it's one of those songs where there's truly 0% of my brain that's committed to the original lyrics. It's only the parody version that I remember. But yeah, it's just like a very pleasant song.
I think it's just an easy song to put on.
Yeah.
It's like it's not too much work to listen to.
I've decided. I've found my place for it. I'm going to put this kind of smack in the middle, but also not around other food songs, which is interesting because we've been finding that food songs tend to go together. But I'm going to put it right here, just below Ricky and just above King of Suede.
Okay.
I think that's where it's going to fit for me. I think that's it's a solid. It's like right in the middle there of like solid, super fun, very clever. Not as clever as his most clever material, but very enjoyable.
For you, is that
especially
Ricky,
considering
Lasagna?
how traumatized that I am by this track. I'm impressed that I even ranked it that high because that took a lot of courage for me.
The forgiveness within you.
I'm trying to come from a place of forgiveness and openness and like we can all move on together.
Yes,
Mine
We're
is
healing today.
Yeah.
Mine's
exactly.
still in that food cluster, but high on the food cluster.
Hey, there you go.
I'm putting it in between Eat It and Addicted to Spuds.
Okay.
So that's putting it in my top 10 right now. Which
that's
definitely not the
there
case
you
with
go.
lasagna for you, but
No, not quite top 10, but I do really enjoy this song.
I will also say that I don't think that lasagna will stay in the top 10. I think that we've got a couple coming up in the next few albums that will like gently nudge it out. But
you like this better than Addicted to Spud? See, that surprises me. I'm just putting there you go.
I have to try to separate it in my brain because the Addicted to Spuds episode might be my favorite episode we've recorded of like almost anything. Ooh. So I'm like, do I like that song or do I like the experience of talking about it? So Kelly, you've been on the show before, so you know how these rankings go.
So I get to place this song wherever I want, and then I get to move something.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, me oh my. Because there's some interesting elements of this list right now is having like Eat It directly in the middle of this ranking, right under Nature Trail to Hell, which I think are very powerful entries. I think I will throw Lasagna maybe between I Lost on Jeopardy and King of Suede.
Oh, pretty low. All right.
No, that's like right in the.
I think it's like
middle.
That's in the middle-ish.
I think that's.
I
that sounds like about where I was thinking of it as well. Yes, I agree with you.
And I would say that because there are so many things above it that I think just do outclass it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I think Lasagna is like excellent.
Yeah.
Do you think
because
that
there's things above it like Nature Trail to Hell and I Lost on Jeopardy and Yoda and things you just cannot move.
Yeah, agreed.
Now, is there anything you want to move around on that list?
So am I able to like do a swapsy? Can I do like any sort of reconfiguring on
anything?
Or is it just like moving one
You
thing?
can put one song somewhere else.
Okay. I believe I'm going to move Nature Trail to Hell up to the 3 slot.
Okay.
Ooh, I like that. I'm on board with
but
that.
That's underneath
love that
Yoda,
song.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking into the
Current
future
ranking
list.
being 1 more minute Yoda, and I'm saying now Nature Trail.
Perfect. All right.
That's great because at this moment, Nature Trail to Hell is my number 3 as well, and Matt's number 3. We
Love
all
it.
agree Nature Trail to Hell is number 3.
Phenomenal.
It is fantastic. It's also the song that I was too intimidated to draw for the illustrated Al because I didn't have enough time and I wasn't sure I could do it justice in that period of time.
There's a lot
that
of
is a beautiful
there's a lot of meat on the
segue.
bone for that one.
That is a beautiful
someone
segue
did do
to
it, I
talk
believe.
about. If you haven't picked up your copy of the illustrated Al yet,
There you go.
What
Now
are
we're talking
some
segues.
songs? What are some songs that you should definitely flip to the pages of when you're looking at the illustrated Al?
Oh, well, I did a few of them, if you're so inclined. I got to illustrate Since You've Been Gone.
Ooh.
which I will say I chose both because it's a song that I love and laugh at every time I listen to it, which I think is a pretty rare case. But also it was the shortest one and I had like a month. So I really protected myself there in banging out 4 full color pages. But no, I had a blast working on that song and really just crafting all the ways that I had to mutilate Al, which I just kept trying to think of the things that made me laugh while I was drawing and just do that on paper because I had to put him through the ringer.
Yeah.
And I gave myself a before and after image. So I drew what he started with and how he should end up and just did all the maiming in between.
I love that. I love that.
It.
Well,
love it. I'm
sure we'll have you on to do Since You've Been Gone when we get to the Bad Hair Day.
Ooh.
But obviously, Kelly, we love having you on here. Always an open door to join us. If you're ever like, ooh, I know that you're coming up to this album and I have some strong opinions on blank song. You are, I think I speak for both of us when I say you're one of our absolute favorite guests.
This was great.
To have on
As
the
you
show.
said, this was a real healing episode for me. I feel better than when I started. So
I hope this has been very meditative.
Agreed.
This has been very soothing.
Agreed.
I'm not at all like massaging my ankle out of just PTSD at all right now. But no, I hope nothing befalls any of us.
Oh, I hope. Oh, Mamma
this
Mia!
episode.
I hope nothing befalls us.
I think what we've learned is you have to be actively listening to a version of this song for something to go terribly wrong.
When listening to this song, exercise caution.
Yes.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.